let's respond to some viewer comments, shall we?
Just play the damn thing.
So it's been a while since I've done a viewers comments video, and this series has kind of undergone some changes over the last couple of years. You know, for the longest time, this used to be called Know Your Troll, and then I kind of decided I didn't really want to be known as the troll guy, and it was kind of a negative thing to project out there into the YouTube world. So I got away from that moniker and renamed the series Music and Mocktails. Well, some new dietary restrictions and some new orders from my family physician have encouraged me to step away from the mocktails portion of that whole thing. So that one's out the window, and so as it sits right now, I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to rename this series to. But for right now, right this very second, we're going to jump into some comments. This from Thomas Hiley says, Gibson's biggest artist / most famous instrument is a counterfeit Les Paul. If you're going to take a stand on your trademarks, I think this is a glowing problem in their company, and I'm curious if it was ever mentioned in the suit against Dean, or how a judge would react knowing that company is endorsing someone famous for playing a fake Gibson. Here's the thing with that guitar that gets blown way out of proportion. Yes, the Les Paul that Slash used to record Appetite for Destruction in 1987 was in fact a replica or a fake Les Paul. It was not an authentic Gibson. That is widely known. However, that album came out in 1987 and was recorded, 86 into 87, I believe. Slash had owned that guitar for quite some time, and I'm willing to bet that he likely, he lived in a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment with his parents up to that point. He didn't come from a ton of money. I'm willing to bet that he had that guitar because the fake one was all that he could afford at the time going into it, and it just happened to be become his main guitar up to that point. Also, the flip side to that whole equation is back in 1987 when that record came out, Gibson was not doing well in the guitar market at all. They were struggling like crazy to be able to compete with everybody else. And everybody else, by the way, this is the 80s, general rule of thumb, if you weren't shredding, you weren't playing. So Gibson, only a few years under the ownership of Henry Juskowitz, just out of the Norland era, by the way, were still struggling to figure out how to compete in the market, while still trying to cling to their traditional roots. And, for the most part, they were getting their asses kicked by Ibanez and Jackson and Charvel, the Jackson and Charvel were still separate companies back at that time, and Kramer and so many others from that era. That's what everybody was buying, and Gibson was trying everything they could think of to compete with that. They even came out with a couple of their own, Super Strat type of models that tanked. They kept trying to put, they were putting Kahlers on Les Pauls, and nobody was buying it. They were not competing in the market very well at all until Slash and Guns N' Roses came along, and all of a sudden brought back interest to the traditional style Les Paul. Gibson owed Slash quite a bit for bailing their asses out back in the 80s, because it's very possible they wouldn't be in business today if Slash had not come along with his fake Les Pauls. So yes, I'm willing to bet that as far as Gibson is concerned, Slash gets a pass on that one. I'm sure he still has it somewhere, and who knows what it's worth now. I'm sure it's probably still in his possession. It's not like it's out there floating around on the used market or anything. Who knows what it's worth today. But let's face it, he has not been seen playing that guitar, in any kind of major capacity in a long, long time. And he has also since been supplied by Gibson with plenty of authentic Gibson guitars since then, both signature, non-signature, whatever. Don't Call Me Lenny says, the guitar looks great. Is there room under the pick guard if you want to replace the neck pickup with a full-size humbucker? Well, Don't Call Me Lenny, the video on which you were commenting on is a demo for this guitar, which is the Latitude Guitars SE1819, I believe is the model on this thing, is what it is, which obviously is an ES335 model. So in short, based on your comment, tell me you didn't bother to watch the video without telling me you didn't bother to watch the video. Astronaut says, the problem is not the list, the problem is all the biased preconception arguments he has on whether one amp is good or bad. I get this shit all the time. People watch my worst amps ever, my worst guitars ever videos, or whatever it is, and they see me cracking on gear and, cracking jokes and making fun of it. And then they refer to those videos as reviews and then complain about said review. Okay, number one, those videos are not reviews. Those videos are strictly for entertainment, mine and whoever else wants to enjoy them. And lots of people have, which is why those two videos that I mentioned in particular are probably my two very most popular videos that I've ever produced on this channel. As for the biased preconception, I'm going to assume a couple of things. Most likely there was an amp that I mentioned in that video that happened to be yours and happened to be one that you own, and the reason why you're upset and lashing out is none other than the infamous phenomenon that we see over and over and over again on this channel: purchase validation. In other words, you got all butthurt that I didn't have anything nice to say about an amp that you happen to enjoy, and for some reason seem to take it personally, as if I knew who the fuck you are to begin with when I even recorded that video, now 5 years ago. Second of all, assuming that you are new to this channel and have never been here before, I've spent many years working in a guitar shop and many more working in the MI industry, which is still what I do for a living today. Back in my days working at a guitar shop, and just so we're clear, I was a manager at a guitar center here in Indianapolis for about 6 years. And 1 year in particular, I earned this award, Used Guru 2012. What does that mean? That means that I bought and sold a shitload of used and vintage guitars and amps over the course of my time there. That particular year, in 2012, we had a staff in the store that year, roughly about 15, 16 associates. I bought and sold more used and vintage gear over the course of that year than the rest of the staff combined. I am very familiar with the used guitar market. Okay, have I owned a lot of the amps that I was making fun of in that video? No, I would never own an amp that I hate. That would be fucking stupid if you're not keeping track. If you are keeping track, that does not mean that I don't have any experience with them. I have played through a lot of amplifiers in my day, mostly from buying and selling used gear from the community. From a large community here in Indianapolis, by the way. This is not a small city. From buying and selling lots of used gear from the local community for many years. I've gotten my hands on a lot of gear. And that's, as has just about anybody else who has worked in a guitar store, they will absolutely understand that. I'm going to assume that you, on the other hand, one, never have, and two, clearly don't understand. This from Cynthia. Needle syringe emoji, skull and crossbones emoji, emoji. This person has left this comment on several videos now. Forgive me, maybe I'm showing my age a little bit here, but does this mean you want to kill me by lethal injection or something? DGS says, number one rule of the MT2 is put it through an effects loop to hear it really shine. Well, you must be new here because I am one of the first people on YouTube that has ever done that. I will post a link to that video here down in the description if you want to check it out. Meanwhile, the video that you commented on was my most recent Metal Zone video where I talked about how to actually dial it in while running it into the front end of an amplifier. And the reason why I'm mentioning any of this is because if you are new here, you might not be aware that nobody, and I mean nobody, loves the Metal Zone more than I do. But I think we should also clear up a huge misconception that's out there that the Metal Zone was designed to be used as a preamp in the effects loop. Bullshit. No, it wasn't. When that pedal came out in 1991, effects loops were around, but they were not nearly as prevalent back then as they are today. There were no interfaces. There were no, preamps were being used in much different, much different manner back then than they are today. And preamps typically back then were rack mount units and going into any number of different kinds of power amp. The Metal Zone was not designed to be used as a preamp going into the return port of an effects loop of an amplifier. People just weren't doing that back then. This one from Veijo Kiuru says, cheers from Finland. I've never owned a Yamaha acoustic, but maybe I'll check one out the next time I'm at the local shop. Thank you. My pleasure, sure. This comment was left on a video that I did a while back on my Yamaha A1R acoustic. In the acoustic guitar market today that is dominated by, Martin and Taylor and Gibson and Breedlove and, and Takamine and sure, others that I'm not thinking of right now. And then you get into the really, really high-end boutique acoustic builders like like Collings and Bourgeois and Loudon, those brands. You've got all of these big name acoustic brands that are all right there at the forefront of the market, and Yamaha for decades has quietly been producing excellent quality acoustics, in every single one of those price points that every single one of those other brands compete in, among others. I get a lot of parents coming to me around the holiday season wanting to get their children their first guitar, and they want to buy an acoustic. For probably the last 15 years now, I don't remember the last time I didn't recommend a Yamaha. For somebody wanting to spend a moderate amount of money that didn't already have their sights set on a specific model from a specific brand, I don't know that I didn't recommend a Yamaha. Yamaha acoustics are excellent instruments. Yamaha guitars in general are excellent instruments. And they keep a kind of a really, really quiet, subtle profile on the guitar market for some reason. And really, they seem to do that just because they don't have to make a big name for themselves. Seriously, electric or acoustic, go pick up a Yamaha sometime and see what you think. I think you are going to be really, really surprised. If you want a killer Yamaha electric guitar to check out that you haven't played in a while, check out I think it's called the RGA2. The model number escapes me at the moment. RGAX2, I think, maybe, something like that. I'll post it on the screen and see if I can find an eBay link or something down in the description for you to check it out. I don't own one, but I've wanted one for a long time, and trust me, they're kick-ass guitars. Carp Tiberiu says, it's not only Randall, all the industry is guilty of this. The electric guitar market is insane. I see LTD 200 series that were $250 now, way over $500 new. Tech 21 products for $300, now over $420. Same with Ibanez, Jackson, Fender Group, etc. The common denominator being popularity. As soon as a product is interesting for the market, the supply artificially drops and prices below. And Ibanez is the most prominent in this. They are hyping their products all over the span of a year. Then they start sending their products to artists and influencers and keep store stocks down, and then the prices are jacked. I disagree with most of what you said there, because, yes, inflation, as I said in the Randall video recently, yes, inflation is a thing. I'm aware of that, but nobody's price increases that I have seen have been anywhere near as big as Randall's. Randall's price increases have gone up just 2.5 times. In most cases that I've seen, just in the last 2 or 3 years. You mentioned a couple, the instance of the LTD 200 series that may have doubled in price or close to it, but that still is not nearly as much as Randall's prices have doubled. And all the rest of those that you mentioned are examples that are right on par with, with what inflation has, how inflation has affected the rest of the industry, as far as price increases. Inflation sucks. I'm not making light of inflation at all. Prices on everything are going up except for fucking paychecks, and it's getting old. But that's the world we live in. We got to deal with it. As for Ibanez, doing their thing, that's not true at all, because Ibanez are a big company. They've got a long history and a lot of brand recognition throughout the industry. They're still popular. They've always been popular. They're always going to be popular. So yes, when they come out with a new model, they're gonna advertise it. They're gonna hype it up. They want to generate interest and let people know it's coming because they want to sell it. Take a look at the Jiva 10, which is the Nita Strauss signature that came out in 2018, I believe. And this will also put the inflation price increase thing into perspective. But when that guitar came out, yes, I think they announced it at NAMM that year. So everybody was all excited. Finally, it hit the market like May or something like that later that year. The pre-sales all sold out at every dealer, across the country, everywhere. And it was probably about 6 months at least, maybe a year, before you could, just get up and readily order a Jiva 10 and have it, show up within a few days or a week, and it actually be in stock, new in a box somewhere. A new product came out, and and that was high in demand, and everybody wanted it, and there's just no way for Ibanez or any company, and again, keep in mind, Ibanez is a big company with, they've got a pretty big production. They have the resources to be able to crank out a lot of guitars. You know, but even then, even their production couldn't keep up with the demand. You know, and in that particular instance, why? Because it was a Nita Strauss signature. You know, Nita Strauss is very, very popular, and she was still very, very popular back in 2018 when her signature guitar came out. That's why Ibanez gave her a signature model to begin with. But price-wise, I think when that model came out, it was $12.99, maybe $13.99, something like that. You know, now it's selling for $14.99. You know, and I'm talking about the standard Jiva 10 production model, not the new, you know, custom shop model thing that just came out. It's like $3,500. The price on that guitar has not gone up that much at all. You know, it is still very, very much in line with what it was, you know, well before COVID, you know, and all the inflation stuff happened. I don't know how Ibanez is able to get away with doing that, but they are, and that guitar still sells like crazy today. It's much easier to get a hold of. You know, there's a lot more inventory of it to be had than there was 5 years ago when it came out. You know, but they still sell plenty of guitars, which is why they still have it in their product line and haven't made any changes to it. Nita Strauss did not get a pile of 50 of those things and, you know, and hoard them all from the rest of the guitar community. It's in her best interest for those guitars to sell as well. As part of the signature deal, they probably gave her a handful of them and promised her, you know, and probably give her, you know, a couple, you know, however many she might need for, you know, for touring purposes or something every year subsequently after that. She's not sitting on a warehouse full of them that are all hers just because, you know, Ibanez gave them to her out of the goodness of their heart. That's stupid. All right, that's it. That's the last comment. Thanks for hanging in there with me. While I responded to some of these, I really do enjoy reading all of your comments. I'm not able to get to all of them quite as efficiently as I once was. They're coming in a lot faster now than they were 5 years ago. You know, sometimes it's you know, a little bit harder for me to keep up with them all. But rest assured, even if I don't respond, rest assured I did read it. I do still make an effort to read every single comment that I get, provided that YouTube doesn't block it and filter it out for whatever reason, because YouTube does that shit sometimes. Anyway, leave your comments down there in this video or any other video on this channel that you might be watching and hopefully will enjoy. Thank you so much for watching. Adios.